Have you guys heard of Bob Porter? This is him when he was younger.
Levi's boy?
Yeah, Levi's boy. You knew him?
Yeah. He lived on Christie Creek, and he lived out on 32 a long time.
That's where he's buried at, ain't it, Joe?
Yeah. That's what we used to go there for dinner.
Yeah.
Well, you did.
His boy, Don, he wasn't, he's not like me in smartness.
He buried like a jack, couldn't he, Joe?
Buried out there on 32.
Yep.
Don went out there and planted corn. Said Papa always liked corn. Planted it on his grave. It growed too.
Hey, Joe, wasn't Don the one that could brace as much like a jack?
Yep.
I've heard Dad laugh about it.
Squeal like a horse or bawl like a bull. He could do it all. Me and my wife come down here. My brother lived down here, and Don was there. And my brother knowed my wife was scared to death of people like that. And he had Don walk up to the window of the car and start braying. She said, "Give me my gun." Don finally backed off.
Looks like he's dad. No? Don't you think?
Bob looks like Levi?
Uh-huh. I think.
Yeah, he went to Wisconsin. Now, Bob sold the farm to Went Porter.
Is that the one?
That's the one.
Okay.
And then he moved to Wisconsin in 1907 or
I don't
something
think I
like
ever
that.
heard his name.
Yeah, he went up there in the logging business. I went to Wisconsin, several years ago. I went to the courthouse. This guy had a whole list of property. I bet there were 100 transactions where he was buying and selling farms up there. He was...
You know what they said his saying was? Now, I've just heard my dad laugh about it. Said, "A fool and his money will soon part." Said Bob would say that. A fool and their money would soon part. And I've heard people tell, and Jules probably heard this about him rubbing mud on his shoes.
Yeah.
To keep people thinking he was bragging about his new shoes. Now, I've heard that, and Jules said he'd heard it.
Wow.
Well, somebody told the story about him on the train going to Wisconsin to buy a farm. So he dressed up like a bum, old dirty clothes, and some lady felt sorry for him, gave him $1 when she got off at the stop right before him. I guess, but I heard of John Porter doing the same thing. I guess that was a way to look poor so you wouldn't get robbed while you're on the train.
Well, they said that.
He was a money maker.
Yeah. Well, so my story, he had 3 wives. He had kids, with the first 2 wives. Then he married a 3rd time. My grandma was Jasper's wife, Senia. You guys probably knew of Senia.
She's been to our house.
Yep.
She used to come to stay 2 or 3 days with us.
Did she?
Yeah. And she'd go over to Everett's and Marcy's and stay 2 or 3 days. Then some of them would come and get her and take her back home.
And was that when she was a widow? Because Jasper died in, I think, 44.
Yeah, he died the year before I was born, so it was a long time after he died.
Okay. Well, their daughter, Geneva, she was on the phone with my Aunt Doris. And my Aunt Doris asked Geneva, she said, this was when Trump was president, and she says, "Are we related to Bob Porter, who was one of Trump's advisors?" So Geneva said, "Well, the only Bob Porter I know is this Bob Porter." And so one day, here's this picture with some of the family. So it was about this same time, Bob Porter shows up. Now, his wife had just died. I don't know how long it had been. And he was with somebody else. So there was another lady with Bob, and they pulled up out front. And Bob sent this lady to go talk to Senia. And the lady wanted to know if Senia would marry him.
Didn't have much time to waste, huh?
He's waiting out in the car. So here's Bob and his second wife. So of course, Senia wasn't interested in him. She'd been a widow for 20 years, so she wasn't interested in Bob. So the lady wanted to talk privately, and Senia says, "You can talk to me in front of these people."
Well, he was a purebred Porter then.
I think he was. Senia told her no. They got in the car and left, and that was the end of it. I don't know if that was before or after he married the 3rd wife. Because Ollie, his second wife, died in June of '56, and he married the 3rd wife, Florence Hall, in February of '57. And then Bob died in March of 58. It might have been between the second and third wife.
Bob had about 3 or 4 boys, didn't he?
Yeah, he had several of them.
And Don and Pete.
I was say from which wife?
I think he had about 16 kids. Don's in this. Here's Don you were talking about.
I know Pete had a big farm in Hillsboro High and bought cattle coming through here. And me and Clifford and Clyde hauled them up for a ton. And he was supposed to. See what kind of fellow it was. He was supposed to pay cash, and he got there and he said, "I ain't got no money. You'll have to take straw for the pay."
Clifford didn't take a load of straw.
So Pete, his son Pete, lived in Hillsboro.
Yeah,
And did he have a family?
I don't know. We just took that load of cattle and unloaded them, and loaded the straw, and come back.
Clifford was mad down we headed back.
So you didn't
You
have
talking about Bob? I've heard Murdy Waddle and them tell about him. He was a regular banker when he came back here, wouldn't he, Jules? Loaning money.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd loan money.